Is this that JPP podcast?
A champion was crowned in the MLB. The NFL trade deadline has arrived, and the first coach has been fired. Did the Cowboys bite too early? Did Houston just become a contender? And is Le'Veon losing big time with James Conner's success? All that and more this week on Just Press Play.
The red wash was extra late. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way, because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So, the Titanic was the biggest ship on the ocean, but that didn't mean it was unsinkable. Okay. All right. I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week. I got one for you. My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast. You like apples?
Welcome back into another episode of the JPP Pod. We are fully staffed today. We got Uncle Tony, LJ, Pops. We're all here. What's up, guys?
What up?
All right.
You know, so in sports, we're mainly going to hit on a bunch of football topics today, but there was a champion crowned in baseball as the Boston Red Sox won the World Series.
Yep.
And I was just looking because you've heard a few of us kind of whine and moan and groan about our teams that we root for, when specifically the two that come to mind, or the three, are the Cowboys, Broncos, and Razorbacks. You know, if you're a Boston sports fan born in the year 2000, you've now witnessed 11 championships between your teams. 11. My God, the poor people from Boston. I hate it for them. I just hate it for them.
That should be should be 13, right? But Eli Manning took a couple. So
but Eli took a little with this dumb looking face.
Poor Bostonites.
Yeah, not to give them any credit, but they did wait a long time. They had the Celtics, but it took a long time for the Red Sox to get back to where they are now. And same thing for the Patriots. So
yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to hear like a Boston fan my age talk with a Boston fan who's maybe 50 to 70, who's actually lived through the hard times, where people my age, like if you're a Boston fan about my age, then it's just nothing but winning. As soon as, ever since you can remember sports, you just remember championships.
Yeah.
So it's probably,
they would just talk.
Speaking of that, I wanted to ask y'all, and maybe Tony, I want you to pitch on this because you watch probably more baseball than the other two, but I was watching the game with some Boston fans, or at least some people who were rooting for Boston, and they really seemed disconcerted when Clayton Kershaw was on the mound. And for those who may not know it, Clayton Kershaw is one of, if not the best pitcher of the past decade, 5 years or so. I mean, that's wild that the best pitcher of the past decade is someone that doesn't scare you on the mound. What is he just? Does he get an unfair shake, or does he choke in the big game? Tom?
Well, let me say this. First of all, they're lying if they don't say they're not scared of him, because he's got unbelievable shit when it's running. But what's happened with Kershaw?
Not sure how to take that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
I think that means good. I think he means that in a good way.
He's got unbelievable shit. I mean, that's what they say, because he's got fastball runs. He's from the left side. He throws 95 plus. The thing about Kershaw that's been his problem, especially the last few years getting to the playoffs, is he breaks down. He pitches so hard during the year that by the time he gets to the end of the year, he's not his full self, and he wasn't running on a full tank in October. But that's been his problem. And in baseball, especially in the playoffs, there's so much attention on starting pitching. The Brewers kind of threw it on its ear this year, but they didn't make it through. But in most cases, your starting pitchers are even more important than a quarterback in the NFL. It's a hard comparison to make, but Kershaw just breaks down. He throws too hard, and he's never been that guy that can roll his way all the way through the playoffs. You see these big guys that can do it, but he's not one of them. And you see guys like Johnny Cueto that are just their playoff specialists. 3 out of 4 years he's in the World Series. That's pretty amazing. But you've got guys that do that, and they're 10-10 during the regular season. So baseball's a little bit different, but that's the deal for Kershaw, is he just breaks down towards the end of the year.
I was going to pitch to old Clayton Kershaw because I know there's something about his player options up, and he could technically decline his player option and become a free agent. And just as a resident Ranger fan, a good pitch for the Rangers to Clayton Kershaw would be like, you don't have to worry about pitching in the playoffs. or the World Series. You just come back home and pitch in the regular season.
Cy Young, and don't worry about October. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
So I wanted to open up to you guys, Elle and Pops, but can y'all think of a comparison maybe to a Clayton Kershaw, a guy who is one of the best at his sport or at his position, but just for whatever reason can't really, you almost expect them to lose the big game before you expect them to win the big game.
Well, I know somebody that you would call out.
Who's that?
Might as well. He's a
is there
Hall of
Mr.
Famer.
Romo?
Yeah.
No, I don't. That would almost sound like Tony Romo slander, and I'm not slandering the great Tony Romo. So
it's not slander if it's the truth.
He got saddled with Jason Garrett. It wasn't his fault. A guy who kind of came to my mind, which he was able to break that narrative after winning a Super Bowl eventually, but Peyton Manning for a while there was that guy where he was maybe the best quarterback in the NFL, but it just seemed like you just assumed there's going to be a game in New England where it's snowing or a game in Pittsburgh where it's cold and wet, and he's probably going to lose. And you're going to wonder why that white Colts jersey looks dirty and why he sucked. Mm-hmm. He was able to break that narrative. And then a couple of who else did I write down?
Well, I mean, Marino then comes to mind.
Dan Marino,
the
biggest one of those.
Brett Favre. I mean, Brett Favre finally just got.
He
got.
Brett Favre won his in
success
like '96, didn't he?
Most of his career.
Yeah, he did, but I mean, as far as he only had one Super Bowl.
Yeah, but never the big game always kind of got away from him. And the other guy is Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly's bashed him so much.
Jim Kelly's a good one.
Fran Tarkenton. I know that's a little far back for some of the folks in the room, but those are guys that you compare from a quarterback position. Hey, I'd say O.J. Simpson. Before he
I looked up a list of like greatest players without a title, and he was
before he got a pair of leather gloves on and decided to teach that woman a lesson.
He won one big game, I guess, but
he won the biggest game of his career. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. But he was one of those. There's several of them, but it's tough.
One that comes to mind to change sports would be Chris Paul in playoffs. Dad, I know you've you've talked about him where maybe I think he's probably the best point guard of my generation, but he is, for lack of, maybe it's his team, maybe it's him. And sometimes I hate the narrative of a guy can't win the big game, because usually I think it has more to do with stuff around them. I don't think you can ever say like Clayton Kershaw himself can't win the big game. There's a lot of things that go into losing big games. But someone who came up, and it's Dad's favorite quarterback of all time, but I wasn't sure who I'm leaning more towards, the quarterback or the coach. But Donovan McNabb was one of those guys who was good for a long time and went to a bunch of conference championship games and just never seem to win it.
He is jacking around with you. Donovan McNabb was not my favorite quarterback.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
But
he's
but
being
more
sarcastic.
importantly, it's not McNabb, but we're talking more about players, but coaches. Andy Reid is one of those guys.
Andy Reid was one of those guys, but it was because
maybe
he was
as good a coaches that we've had for the past 15
Marty
years.
Schottenheimer.
And like LJ's mentioned this with the to throw water on the Chiefs all year, but they're great to start the year for the past 5 years, and it's come December and January where Andy Reid looks silly holding this Waffle House menu and using too many timeouts, and they blow a game late.
I'm sorry. Now I can see is Andy Reid saying, "Hey,
broke Tony.
Hey, Patty, I want you to smother and cover it."
Andy Reid is probably familiar with a Waffle House menu. I would bet that. For sure.
Yeah, he probably doesn't need it in front of him, really.
I bet he knows smothered, covered, whatever, and whatever.
Oh, man.
Moving on to the NFL, it was a big day today, the trade deadline, which it's not always been this way, where the Tuesday trade deadline is a big news. Usually it's more of an MLB and NBA thing where it's a big deal at the trade deadline. But I was looking at what makes why we're getting to see more trades in the NFL. And I think one of the biggest reasons is they decided to move the deadline back 2 weeks to after week 8 instead of after week 6. And that gives a lot of teams the realization to at week 6, when you're 2-4 or 3-3, you still think maybe there's a shot. And by week 8, a lot of these teams by week 8 are going, all right, we're punting on it, or we're going to be buyers or sellers.
You can look. The Broncos aren't looking to win a Super Bowl this year, so like they're a lot more active in getting rid of somebody that might have a say in whether they could win a Super Bowl this year.
But maybe 2 weeks ago, the Broncos are a little hesitant to trade Demaryius Thomas, because we've seen in the NFL. Look, we just mentioned Eli Manning's Super Bowl rings. All it takes is to get hot at the right time of the year.
Yeah.
And so if you think there's a shot, you kind of are hesitant to make that trade. But now if you're the Broncos, it looks like we're probably pretty clearly not catching the Chargers and Broncos, or Chargers and Chiefs. So let's punt on it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just ask
Kevin,
you guys, and we'll get into specific.
I'd counter that a little bit, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd counter that a little bit because I think actually at week 8, you've got more buyers than you had at week 6. Because at week 6, everybody's really not figuring out exactly who their first and second strings are, and you haven't had any really big injuries. But week 8, you've really got guys out there. We want to be buyers in this. We've got a shot. And you see that this year, there's a lot of teams that are still in the hunt. And at week 6, you don't know if you're in the hunt or not. But week 8, you do. And I need to add this person, this specific
I think both
player or
I agree with you.
So I think it helps it.
I wasn't saying only just sellers, but yeah, I think that's a big point. And you're right, Tony, is there's teams in week 8, like we saw with the Cowboys in the Cooper trade, where they think, even though I don't think they've played great, they at least realize by looking at their division that they still have a shot. And then you have the Eagles, who clearly still have a shot, so they'll go make a trade. But I wanted to who do y'all think was maybe the big winner or a big loser? Just your thoughts on some of the trade deadline stuff.
Well, I feel like the Cowboys are the big loser of this trade deadline because, Amari Cooper for a first doesn't look very good anymore to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. It did. That's the biggest loser.
I don't know how great of a receiver Demaryius Thomas is, but to see what Thomas goes for a fourth rounder, and we traded a first for a Cooper. I mean, if I'm saying the jury's still out on Demaryius Thomas as a good receiver, the jury's definitely still out on Amari Cooper.
Okay, but let me say something about that. If the jury's still out on Demaryius Thomas, by the way, he's 30 years old. If the jury's still out on Amari Cooper, he's 24. Okay,
sure.
That's a huge difference. So
that is a great point.
So I don't know. I'm just telling you, I don't know that the trade. I wish they wouldn't have given up a first rounder, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that I don't think it was just the most horrible thing in the world that
I agree.
Dallas gave up the first rounder for Amari Cooper.
It's a bit extreme, though. I think that they're on the losing end of that deal. So,
and then you saw Golden Tate. Golden Tate went to the Eagles for a third rounder. So the Cowboys definitely spent the most on a receiver,
no doubt.
But I think Cooper has the most upside of those receivers, but as we mentioned last week, and I know we've talked about with you, Pops, but if Cooper does live up to what you want out of that pick or out of that trade, then he's going to also want a hefty contract here in about a year and a half. So,
I think two big things happened. There are two teams I thought were most affected by today's trade deadline. First was the Packers. They gave up Ty Montgomery. Now, they may have needed to do that so he wouldn't get any more death threats because of that fumble he had at the end of that game.
That's what I'm hearing.
That was dumb.
It may have
that was
to do with it.
Dumb.
But he's a pretty talented guy. But now the Ravens they really didn't need that because they got Buck Allen is their guy out of the backfield. But this guy's, obviously going to be a great return man for them. But then they reached out and
I think Clinton Diggs.
Yeah, Clinton Diggs. I just wanted to have the chance to say Clinton Diggs and him going to the.
I feel like a lot of people said that around 1994 or so.
Yeah, that was good. Anyway, so him going to the Redskins, I think the Redskins were the second winner, I'd say today, coming in there the last minute and getting a solid defensive secondary guy, I think really helps the Redskins because we've talked about them before. They're not going to score a lot of points, but the defense has really shown up the last couple of weeks and going to your strength there and getting. So you've got Josh Norman and Clinton Dix both in that backfield now, defensive backfield. I think that really helps them. Philadelphia Eagles, why do you go get Golden Tate when you've got Nelson Aguilar there? Now, Nelson's not Golden Tate, but he still is that slot receiver and has done okay. I'm not sure about that one.
I think that tells me Alshon Jeffrey is not completely healthy, I think is what that kind of
He's never completely healthy.
Right. So
I don't know if I'm on that or not because Alshon is the outside receiver and he's not really affected by Golden Tate coming to town. Personally, in my opinion, he's going to be that guy, and I think he's shown for the last 2 weeks he has gone off with some really, really big points from a fantasy standpoint and big numbers within the game. Now, Philadelphia haven't found a way to win those games, but Jeffrey looks back to me. But why you go get the best slot receiver on the market when you've already got a middle-of-the-road slot receiver? You could have gotten Clinton Dix. You could have gotten that defensive tackle from the Giants to help your defense out a little bit. They didn't do it. I'm not sure about that one, unless they decided to score 60 points again.
Well, I think, and some of it'll come down to is Well, and I mean, what I wanted to say, what you said about the Washington R words in their trade at their deadline, I think they see everybody in the NFC minus the Giants loading up at receiver, and I think they were kind of in the market for a receiver, but they didn't want to. I guess they didn't want to pay up for any of the guys. But for them to go out and say, "All right, well, y'all are going to load up on receivers, well, we'll just go get our defensive backs and load up there," because you mentioned Norman, who's kind of on and off, but I think he's a solid corner. And then
I did see just on Norman real quick to interrupt. I saw like in the first 5 weeks or something, he was giving up a passer rating when thrown towards him of 151.4 when the maximum is 151.8 or something like that. So
he kind of got going the past 2 weeks, but he started out the year very, very. He got benched, I think, and that Drew Brees game where Brees broke the record. But according to Pro Football Focus, the top graded safeties in the NFL are DJ Swearinger, who I really like from the Redskins, and then Clinton Dix. So, I mean, there's some talent on that defensive backfield now.
Well, and look at Washington to pay something to what Tony said earlier. They got a real chance to win that division, and there's not going to be a wild card out of the NFC East, I believe it is. There will not be a wild card out of that. So you either need to win the division to make the playoffs, or you're not making the playoffs. So I thought Washington did well in that. While I've got the floor, I will say I do think Houston did well with Demaryius Thomas, because I think you pair him with DeAndre Hopkins, who we've said on this podcast may or may not be the best receiver in the NFL. He's certainly in that argument. Deshaun Watson looks like he might be the quarterback that people thought they thought he was. And I'm just telling you, Houston looks pretty solid. And I think picking up Demaryius Thomas was a really, for a fourth rounder.
Brylan, 8 more years.
Hey, let me ask this.
I'll
throw this question out to you guys. Do you think Houston goes and gets Demaryius Thomas if Will Fuller doesn't tear his ACL last week?
Well, I think that's the big one. Probably not, because with Fuller going down now, if Fuller's down and they don't go get another receiver, then if you're playing the Texans now, you're probably just going to put 3 on Hopkins and just make someone else beat you. So to make sure, like Dad's saying, to go get someone else to make that can win games for you. And like Dad's saying about Watson, it wasn't that long ago before this once in a generation type quarterback came in at Kansas City that Deshaun Watson was the guy lighting the NFL on fire a year ago before he tore his ACL, and he was all we were talking about. And his knee's still healing up. If Watson starts getting healthy, they somehow rattled off 5 in a row. I'm with Dad. I kind of think that was I think it was a trade that was needed to be made by them.
And by the way,
it works out, but
they still got that defense. They still got J.J. Watt and what's the guy? Clowney putting pressure on the passer. Houston's got some talent down there. They really do.
Yeah. I thought, as you said, Dad, I think we'll see how the trade works out, but it was a trade that was needed to be made by Houston. If you think you're for real, go out and get a receiver. And like we mentioned,
for a fourth
round pick,
yeah,
that's. And LJ, can you might, I don't know if we want to go long on this, but you may know a little more as the Bronco fan, but there's been a bunch of really neat stories that have kind of come across my timeline about, it's like Broncos beat writers just talking about Demaryius Thomas. I think he's like a hell of a dude.
He seems to be. I've never heard a negative story about him.
I was reading a story about it, and I'll try to put it in the show notes for this, but there was a kid that went to he holds like a wide receiver camp every summer, and it's for young kids, and this 15-year-old kid, something Drake, I can't remember his first name, but he came to one of the camps and kind of kicked it off with Demaryius Thomas. I'm sure he kicks it off with a bunch of the kids, but then the kid passed away that same summer in a rafting accident. And Demaryius Thomas has done he now does this foundation. He wears like this Drake shirt every game before the pre-games and keeps up with the family. And the family actually reached out to say that this trade is hurting them just as they're losing kind of a family member, not a Bronco. Yeah. There's a lot of really cool stories about Demaryius Thomas where I was like, wow, this guy might just be, which I think there's a lot of really good guys in the NFL, and you hear the negative stories before you hear these neat stories.
Right.
And it was just neat to me to go, man, Demaryius Thomas might just be a really good guy. And so I'm rooting for him. And plus I've always kind of liked the Texans.
2 more little quick things. If I'm not mistaken, Houston plays Denver this week.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah, but it's a short week for him, right? So I don't think he's going to play. I mean,
sure,
but he might have a little insight.
Him up and put him in there.
He's not playing, but his
learning
playbooks
that playbook though.
Yeah, his playbook's playing right now.
He's coming with some insider info, that's for sure.
And apparently Denver a lot of this was the emergence of Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton,
he's looking amazing.
Is looking amazing. So it made Demaryius Thomas a little bit expendable. So
I agree.
Yeah, maybe I think trade good for both parties.
Yeah. Denver came into this year, I think, and last year's draft knowing they're probably not going to sign Demaryius Thomas after this year. So that's why they went and drafted a few corners.
So they get a fourth.
So might as well go ahead and get you a pick out of it. And like you said, I felt like Cortland Sutton's been needing to get more snaps and more targets as it is. So just take one guy out.
Yeah.
Y'all mentioned the Redskins, and I just wanted to throw this out there. And me and Dad were talking about it over the weekend, and I think we talked about it on the last pod when we recorded on Sunday night. But Adrian freaking Peterson, the dude. Did y'all see that 60-yard touchdown he had?
I believe I don't believe it. I don't want to misquote anybody, but I believe he's an alien.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
So I was reading, I read one thing about that 60-yard touchdown. It clearly wasn't the same Adrian Peterson we remember from like his MVP years where he just breaks and he's gone. Like he clearly was gassed on the last 20 yards.
He was clearly giving it everything he had when probably 5 years ago, he just is gliding in. He was getting it.
So I can compare Adrian Peterson in that run to Liff and his hook shot. You know, he can still make a hook shot. But
I've never heard Adrian Peterson compared to
It takes a little
Lifford.
more effort these days for him to really make it a good one, you know? So, but he still make it.
And it probably doesn't look as pretty, but
no, Liff, don't sell it short, man. Don't sell it short.
So, speaking of AP and that 64-yard touchdown.
Oh, we're not going to stick on the hook shot?
No.
I don't have as many good stats about Dad's hook shot.
Ask him. He'll tell you.
At 33 years old, I heard this.
He's got a spreadsheet.
I heard this stat on Dan Patrick, and that is the longest touchdown run by any player over the age of 30 since, guess this, Jim Thorpe in 1921.
No way.
That's the NFL. The NFL research
Kevin
looked up.
Stats.
That's the last time a player older than Peterson had a touchdown over 60 yards.
Hey,
That's awesome.
Stats Luthringer might be changing. LJ,
Yeah,
that
no
was
kidding.
a good stat.
That was a great pull.
So-
wow.
Listen to this. I was going to make fun of that because I was going to say, man, look at the athletes today. I mean, we're comparing Adrian Peterson to Jim Thorpe. But I'm sleeping on Jim Thorpe. That dude was an amazing athlete.
Jim Thorpe.
I thought it was funny that when he was 34 and he ran that 80-yard touchdown, it was for the Cleveland Indians against the Columbus Panhandlers. I don't know. I'm not sure which one it is, but that's what the team names were.
Yeah, but
just some fun Jim Thorpe facts.
yeah, I remember that Columbus
He was
team.
born
And
in
they didn't have any fantasy players on that, so that was really a cheap stats on that one.
Jim Thorpe was born in 1887, won 2 gold medals in the same year for the pentathlon and the decathlon in the 1912 Olympics. And he's also a Pro Football Hall of Famer, a College Football Hall of Famer, played 6 seasons in the MLB, and also played in the Pro Basketball League before it was the NBA. So maybe I was sleeping on, I was going to say Jim Thorpe was not near the athlete Adrian Peterson was. Maybe he was.
Anytime the conversation comes up with the greatest American athletes of all time, he is in that conversation.
He's in the
There's
conversation.
never been a conversation without his name coming
That's
up.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I agree.
That and hey, a little known fact, also hot dog eating champion.
No way. Is that true or is that just thrown in there?
Bullshit.
Hey, call your buddy Dan, see if he can look that shit up. I'm saying Jim Thorpe was a hot dog eating champion. Let's see what happens.
I'm not sure the validity on
look
that,
it up.
but we'll just let that
Look
one.
it up.
I'm finding nothing.
What were you going to say?
There's
Dad?
good hot dogs in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania.
I don't have anything
Is
as
that
good
what you're
as
maybe
I
thinking
didn't
of?
say
Jim
where.
Thorpe. Okay. I was a little surprised. Let's get back to reality. I was a little surprised Patrick Peterson didn't go anywhere. I mean, were y'all? I really thought someone would make a play for him, and maybe Arizona wanted too much. I don't know.
No,
but,
he vetoed
here's
it.
the preeminent defensive back in the league, and
They allowed him to say no. He came out and said he did not want to be traded.
oh, he did.
Well,
Okay.
Did he? So he came out, and maybe I'm a little wrong on this. Correct me if so. But I think he came out and wanted to trade, and then it sounded like the Cardinals said they weren't going to trade him, And then he did, but he did later had a tweet that was like, I don't want to be traded. I'm going to give it. I've always given my all and I always will give it my all and blah, blah, blah. And it'll probably, I think it was a little bit of both. I don't think the Cardinals really wanted to trade him. So they basically, any team that called, they were like, said, here, you can give us 2 firsts if you really want them. And everyone's like, besides no one, it wasn't Khalil Mack, I guess. So no one was willing to do it.
Cowboys had already given up their first. So
yeah. The Cowboys were already out of there first. So they couldn't
because Patrick Peterson was going to turn into both the wide receiver and defensive back for them.
I was interested too. I think Patrick Peterson is a game changer if a team, because the Saints probably called and they were wanted too much. So the Saints went and got Eli Apple for a lot cheaper. So
a lot cheaper.
Speaking of guys who didn't get traded, Mr. Le'Veon Bell didn't get traded, and it was because he could not be traded because he had to sign his franchise tender by 1 p.m. today, and he did not do that. I believe now he probably will report because this was kind of his thing. He didn't want to get traded to someone just for a half a year, so he should report. But that's not as much what I wanted to mention, but I wanted to bring up, and I know LJ's brought this up a few times, I think, and we've talked about it on and off the air, but is James Conner and what he's doing for Pittsburgh not proving the Steelers to be completely correct and not giving Le'Veon Bell the big contract?
I mean, I think I think it is proven. I think you're exactly right in what you're saying because, you know, they, as much as Le'Veon Bell would be an improvement, they're not like dying in need of a running back right now. So,
hey, let me throw a few stats out.
As he looked.
Let me throw a few stats out. James Conner this year is 4.7 yards per rush. In 2017, Le'Veon Bell was 4.0 yards per rush. In this year, James Conner is 11.4 yards per reception. In 2017, Le'Veon Bell was 7.7 yards per reception. Now, the difference there is that Conner has not caught near the amount of passes that Le'Veon Bell catches. Now, I'm not trying to deny that.
Yeah.
But I am so with what you're saying, LJ, that James Conner has proven the Steelers exactly right. They're doing the right thing.
Well, and it's to your extent, Dad, and he hasn't caught as much, but if you just look at their per game stats, they're averaging the same amount of touches per game, and Bell only averages about a half a yard more per touch. So, I mean, he has been – Le'Veon Bell's better. There's
not about the stats,
100% of Le'Veon Bell's better than 100% of James Conner, I believe. But James Conner, if you're telling me I can get close to Le'Veon Bell, for Conner's contract is 4 years, $3 million with $700,000 guaranteed. Le'Veon Bell gets that tag for this year is $14.5 million, and if he signs that big extension, like say Gurley got, or even more, then it becomes 35 plus million.
Good God, they got to pay Roethlisberger, so they can't. You know,
I was about to say when you've got Fat Blake Bortles as your quarterback, you're going to be able. Anybody will run the ball on that offense.
Hey, LJ, by the way, did you hear Roethlisberger does have a broken index finger on his non-throwing hand?
Oh, does oh
yes.
Well, we'll write our card. You guys want to sign a card with me?
Yeah, we'll sign a get well soon card for Big Ben.
You know.
So is Le'Veon Bell losing money this year?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Is his agent probably kind of sweating over there? Well,
so,
I still got to think someone's going to pay him, but it's also easy for anyone at the negotiation table to go, well, you did really do well, but just James Conner guy did really well behind the same offensive line.
Maybe it's Pittsburgh.
That's not how he wanted. Yeah. It's not how he would have wanted this to look for sure.
Yeah.
It was supposed to work out.
Need him.
So it was supposed to work out, and Dad and Tony will know this. They'll remember this happening, but Emmitt Smith held out for the Cowboys way back in the day, and they called up about week 5. Were like, you just tell us what you need. You just tell us
week 3.
what you want.
He was in week 3. It's week 2.
Okay.
He was in week 2. They're like, damn, we can't run the football.
Halfway through first game.
How much
that was back when
please.
Jerry had all his faculties back then, and he was like, hey, we got to win, damn it. Barry, I'm going to kick your ass out of here.
That was when Jerry was still – I don't know if Jerry Jones isn't just a hologram now. I was saying this to a friend. I don't know if he's actually still alive, and that's not just a hologram up there.
I have physical evidence he's not. So, hey, I want to say something about this.
Surely there'd be an algorithm that would be a better owner than Jerry Jones, right? So he's really there.
Yeah. Hey, I want to say something about the Le'Veon Bell deal just real quick. Here's where I think the stats are a little bit deceiving. A couple of games this year, if the Steelers had Le'Veon Bell, they probably win one of those 2 games because of the sheer athleticism that he has over Conner. Not that Conner's bad. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. But there are plays that Le'Veon Bell can make down the field that Conner cannot. And there's been some situations late in games where and I'll give LJ a bone here, where Roethlisberger throws a high pass that Bell can go up and pick it where Connor can't. He's just not that kind of back. And Le'Veon Bell is special in the athleticism he brings to that position and the longevity that he brings to his position for a season. So I think that's the difference. Is just the stats. Connor's better at his stats, but I think when it comes down to the end of the game and those kind of critical situations, that's where they miss Bell. And that's probably what will happen going forward is we'll see Bell in the game in the fourth quarter. But that's the difference for me.
And that's where you're not going to get an argument from me on who's a better player. I don't think you're going to get an argument from hardly anyone. I think Bell is the better player, but just where the Steelers go is for them to lock up. Even if Bell were to accept the exact offer that Todd Gurley got, which I think Bell wants much more. Gurley got 4 years at $57 million and 25 guaranteed. So that means that's about 14.5. That's about $14 million a year guaranteed, I think, or $14 million per year. Where right now Connor is making $700,000 a year. So Bell's better, he is, but Connor's at least close, and not even a fraction, I think, is not even strong enough of a word. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. Did they make a great decision?
So
but did they never should have franchised Bell. They should have dealt him or made a long-term contract. That's where they messed up.
Yeah,
that's the only fan. It's annoying that he's sitting out.
Yeah.
Like, just as a fan of the NFL, I want to see him playing anywhere.
Fair enough, LJ. I
Besides
agree.
New England or
They've
Oakland,
messed it up. They messed it up last year. This year they played it right. They've gotten lucky.
Speaking of Gurley, we brought him up, and he once again had another fantastic game. I know, Mr. Fantasy Football over here, and also
Todd Gurley owner.
Man,
yeah,
that run at the end of the game where Gurley decided not to go in the end zone and go and fall down. As much as fantasy owners probably shouldn't be that upset with him because if you own Todd Gurley, you're probably doing pretty well in your league.
Yeah.
But two, that was a genius play, right? I mean, that made me like Todd Gurley even more.
Hey, you know what? Apparently, he must have been watching that Cowboys-Packers game 2 years ago when we gave the Packers a minute and a half. It's like, oh, shit, they came back and won the game. Well, the Cowboys didn't do what they needed to do and lay down, kick a field goal, and end the game with 0. He figured it out. Don't give Aaron Rodgers the ball. He lays it down, and it was a great play. It was the play to make.
And that's what Pops brought up to me this week, and we were just talking because I was in town and we were watching that game together. And I think Dad was saying, I mean, if he scores, they probably win. I mean, the odds of Aaron Rodgers coming back is low, but
because they're up 2 scores.
The thing is,
right?
They would have been so that touchdown would have put them up 8, and they would have kicked an extra point and go up by 9. But we just saw a week ago, Mr. Justin Tucker, who I didn't think would ever miss an extra point, missed one. So if the kicker were to somehow miss the extra point, now all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers gets the ball back with 1:40 down by 8. I'm sweating if I'm anybody on the Rams sideline. So it's the right play, even though the chances that the Packers finally do make a comeback is slim. There's still, so you're saying there's a chance, there's still a possibility.
I think you put it right, Kevin, because I thought, why didn't he go ahead and score? They're up, essentially 2 scores for almost certain. But Kevin made the point. He goes, yeah, but this way they for sure win. I mean, I think the chances of them winning with him stopping at the 4-yard line were better than him scoring. And that was kind of a weird thing to me, but I think it was the fact. It was a truth.
Was it
showed
Frank?
me that Gurley believes in his offense. He believes in his coach. And they're well coached. Can you imagine a Dallas player doing that? Hell, they would have ran out of bounds and stopped the damn clock or something is what they'd have done.
Well, that's what me and Dad had that same topic a little earlier in the day. We're like, it's crazy how often you see a guy run out of bounds when you shouldn't, or don't get out of bounds when they should.
Alex
Mainly
Smith,
Cowboys
for
players do it
God's
all the
sake,
time.
Was it this
2
week?
weeks
2
ago.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jeez. Anyway.
Where if he stays in bounds, the Cowboys end up with like 30 seconds, but since he goes out, they get a minute something.
Well, since it was
There's
the
just so
Cowboys,
many players
they
make
didn't
boneheaded plays. All these players make bonehead plays, and you see the Rams, not only are they maybe the most talented, but they also make the right play. They seem well coached, which as a fan of the Cowboys, it's just odd seeing a well coached team. It's hard for me to grasp my brain around that thought. That we talked about winners and we talked about losers, and one that play, that Ty Montgomery play, which Ty Montgomery's now been traded for a half a bag of Skittles, not even a full bag of Skittles after fumbling. Yeah. That play on him. So I've heard more. So for anyone who didn't see, they get the ball. Aaron Rodgers going to get it down by 2 or 3? Two points. And instead of kneeling the ball in the end zone, Ty Montgomery is going to run out of the end zone and he fumbles the kickoff. So arguably the best quarterback in the game, especially down by a few points with a minute left, doesn't even get a chance to touch the ball. And then it comes out.
The other thing is if he kneels it right then, he gets the 2-minute warning also as like that
was a big deal.
Well, so it came out. Warning. McCarthy said the whole plan is the only way we don't bring that out of the end zone is if they don't kick it to the end zone. Like you kneel it no matter what if it gets to the end zone because of that right there, because you get an extra clock stop. And Montgomery comes out a little later today and tried to defend himself a little bit. Was like, well, I'm not getting the touches in the backfield, so I really want to try to make a play. That's the kind of guy you don't want on the roster.
Right. Yeah.
That's a me guy, not a team guy.
Yeah. That's it.
And that's why he got traded for not even a half bag of Skittles. I think it might have been like a quarter of a bag of Skittles.
It was like 2 Skittles.
Only the green ones.
Yeah, it was like it was like a pack of Starburst, but the yellow ones.
2 green Skittles and a Slim Jim. Not the big Slim Jim. So that's what I wanted to get
Slim Jim. The little small Slim Jim.
Slim Jim. The pocket Slim Jim.
That's what I wanted to get to as the losers of the trade deadline was, and I kind of want to just get on the Packers in general. I think they're a poorly run organization, and I don't think that's
I think it's worth discussing. Yeah.
I mean, I think that they have got a lot of Band-Aids in what you would call 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. If they didn't have that happen, then I don't know what they've got. You know, they can't even make it happen for 2 of the best quarterbacks. For the
past 26 years, they've had arguably the best or top 3 quarterback in any given year and Hall of Fame quarterback. Since 92, they've had Brett Favre and Rodgers, and they've done that well. They have played the quarterback position very well. But then other than that, they've kind of screwed the pooch.
You know, I'm not going to blame an organization because, oh, by the way, we've had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back. I'm not going to blame them for that. But Kevin, you make a good point. And here's what I saw in the trades that they made today is number one, we said goodbye to Mike McCarthy. That's the first thing. And two,
about time.
And two, I think we're going to see a restructure of what Green Bay wants to be. Rodgers is on the other side of 30, I believe. And so
I think he's about 34.
Yeah, so he's on the wrong side of that. It's 4 or 5 years. They see what the Saints have done and made themselves into a power running team so that Breeze can stay a little longer. I think you see that maybe the Packers start to look towards that a little bit. But if they somehow eke into the playoffs, which I don't think that they will, that could be stalled a little bit. But I think that's what you saw today is the end of the McCarthy era, and they're moving on.
Well, and I just they have Aaron Rodgers now in year 14. He has been a great quarterback, maybe the best quarterback in the game. And what they've done in the draft, they've never really spent big on free agent to go get him someone. I know they went and got Jimmy Graham this year, and that doesn't seem like it's worked out. I know Jim McGee's rolling around in his bed right now, upset about that one. But
he just grabbed his taint.
But if you look at what the Packers have done since 2012 in the draft, they haven't spent big in free agents, and they went in the first round. They got Nick Perry, who is a defensive lineman. He's been solid, but he's only had 1 double-digit sack year in his career. Then they got in the second round, they got a D lineman named Gerald Worthy. I've never heard of him, and he's no longer with the team. They also drafted Casey Hayward in the second round, who's a good cornerback for the Chargers. He's not with the Packers anymore. And then in 2013, they took a defensive end with the first round pick, Dayton Jones. Never heard of him. In
Dayton
2014,
Jones.
They took HaHa Clinton Dix,
who's his latest album.
He's the one guy they got HaHa Clinton Dix. He's a Pro Bowl guy, but they traded him for a 4th round pick. And then in 15, they got Demarius Randall in the first round, a cornerback who now plays for the Browns. They got a defense. I mean, they draft the past 3 years. They've drafted 3 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds. They're drafting a ton of defensive guys, and it looks like none of them are working. They never go get Aaron Rodgers help because he's just a good quarterback, and they think he can do it on his own, which for the most part he does. But they kind of wasted away his career. I think they wasted away one of the best quarterbacks with only 1 Super Bowl appearance. And I don't know. Maybe that's wrong.
Fair. Kevin, that's an astute observation.
Well, and you know, Kevin and I talked about that briefly. I mean, you look at other Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have followed Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and the one that immediately comes to mind to me is Joe Montana and Steve Young.
And
you look at the Super Bowls.
Did they win?
They won just a few, and I think they won more than one each. And so did Young? How many did Young win? I mean, Montana won.
I think it's 2.
I think Montana won 3, and then Young won 2.
Young won 2. Don't the 49ers
and so
have 5?
Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have won 2. And that does seem like a little bit underwhelming for the talent of those two guys. And that seems to speak to the lack of talent they put around those two.
That's a
it looks
good
like Steve Young
point.
won 1, by the way.
He just won one.
It looks like
he's from BYU. Everything looks bigger if you're BYU. Here's
You want
the
to know?
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder, this is a question for you guys. Are we skewing our opinions and the way we look at success because of the way Tom Brady and the Patriots have been? I mean, that's just so extraordinary for an organization and one quarterback to be that successful over that long a period of time. Are we really thinking, hey, these guys aren't successful because they haven't won 2 or 3 Super Bowls? You know, a lot of guys get out of there with 1 and they're there. So I kind of wonder about that. That hey, are we saying that the Green Bay Packers aren't a successful organization because between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers they've only won 2 Super Bowls? I can tell you right now, the New York Football Jets would take that and give you $10 million for it. So
you're not wrong.
The Dallas Cowboys would give you $50 million for it and a first round pick. So you know, I wonder if that's the case. I would ask you, Kevin or LJ, you guys, when y'all are looking at stats, how many times out of the last 15 years in the McCarthy era have the Packers been to the playoffs and won a game? I think that's where they put themselves out there to be successful.
I was reading they have won like playoff and divisional rounds. I looked up. They've been to, I think, 4 conference championships. So that's impressive. But I look at it like this. You look at Aaron Rodgers and you look at Eli Manning. Eli Manning, not only has he won more Super Bowls, he's been to more Super Bowls. So he's had more chances at winning a Super Bowl. I don't think it's questionable who's the better quarterback of the two. I think and that's why I think you see Aaron Rodgers on the sideline looking, he's not good at hiding his body language, clearly. I don't think he likes McCarthy. I don't know if he likes the Green Bay. He likes the money he gets paid, but he looks around and goes, how the hell are all these guys, all these players are getting loaded with talent around, and the Patriots are, even though they'll go out and try every now and then to go get a Josh Gordon and see if it works, or an Ocho Cinco, that one didn't work, but they'll at least go try something out. And you'll see other teams trading first-round picks for Amari Coopers or whatever. And then Aaron Rodgers gets a cornerback every single damn year in the first round that ends up playing for the Browns or someone else. I just think that's where you see his body language get upset is he masks a lot of these inefficiencies and ends up winning a wild card game or 2, not because of McCarthy and the GM, but because of they just had the best quarterback on the field.
Hey, I'll say this is the last thing I'm going to say on this. I don't feel a damn bit sorry for Aaron Rodgers because I know where he's at tonight. He's Danica Patrick. So screw him. Whatever.
Well, so what about Ryan Tannehill? Then you like Ryan Tannehill too, then, don't you?
Yeah, Ryan's. Yeah, that ain't no Danica Patrick. She goes 212 miles an hour.
I hate to transition from Danica Patrick to some bad news, but we have lost a fun story for the NFL, and Hue Jackson is no longer coaching NFL football, and I don't know if he ever will head coach another NFL team.
I wonder what it looks like from the chair he's sitting in now.
Well, that's what everybody who watched Hard Knocks is like. Wow, it took 8 weeks for this to happen.
8 weeks.
That's insane.
I just feel sorry for somebody. You can't go rub his little bald head. Everybody liked to rub his little bald head. I thought that was kind of.
I think he's a likable guy. He just was a bad head coach, and I was shocked that they let Todd Haley go too. Though I mean, I know he's a different kind of dude, but I just thought his work with Baker Mayfield, unless there's something there I didn't realize. I was really a little shocked that they let Haley go.
Well, I think they were excited to bring in Freddie Kitchens, who is a made-up name. Clearly, it's obviously Mike McCoy and a mustache is what they brought in. I think so.
Freddie Kitchens.
That's his name. Yeah, that's their new OC. So
Freddie Kitchens is our new OC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Him and Jim Bob Cooter should get together and have a party.
Do you think Greg Williams and Todd Haley are kind of like in spite, but they're kind of at the bar tonight, just cheers and going, you know what, you won? Because it was clear in Hard Knocks that those two hated Hue Jackson. We're just like, we'll see who can outlast this awful head coach. And somehow, Mr. Bountygate, the guy who literally told people to make sure not to get up out of the pile without hitting them on the head and twisting a knee, is now the head coach of an NFL team again, or at least interim.
Yeah, I'm not sure Todd Haley has a friend in the world, so I'm not sure he's out with anybody tonight. But
I mean, I think Todd Haley is kind of a dick. I mean, he sure has that persona. It looks like he is. But then Greg Williams is kind of a dick. So
he's not kind of. He is a dick.
Mean, he's a dick.
He's all the way dick.
I mean, I think Hue Jackson's a likable guy. You'd like to have a beer with him maybe, but just you don't want him coaching your team.
Did y'all see what Adam Schefter pointed out? I think it was on Monday that the last 6 Browns head coaches, the last 6 have all been fired the week following the second Steelers game of the regular season.
That is interesting.
It's mind-blowing.
Romeo Cornell, Eric Mangini, Pat Shermer, Rod Jadzinski, Mike Pettin, and now Hue Jackson were all fired after the second Steelers game. That's incredible.
Boys, we got to get the Steelers off our schedule.
Also, Big Ben has won more quarterbacks in Cleveland than any quarterback for the Browns.
Yeah, he's won more home games
in the NFL.
So I seriously though, I think the reason this happened and Haley went down is because the GM made the decision. Look, Baker Mayfield is not getting better with these two guys. If he's at the bottom of the stats for this rookie quarterback class, that's not acceptable. We can lose 10, 12 games as long as Baker Mayfield's getting better, and he wasn't getting better, and I think that's why you saw that move.
Well, and is that John Dorsey, right, is the general manager?
Yeah.
And I think he is fairly renowned as a really good general manager.
Well, he literally he traded Carlos Hyde so they would play Nick Chubb more. I mean, he is trying to get his guys played more, and he can't get his young guys that are really – he's been drafting well. I think what's kind of interesting, and LJ, do you remember the guy that the Browns brought in? He was the young hotshot from baseball. I think his name was like Sashi Brown, and he kind of came in with the same model that the 76ers had, where they were just going to tank and lose and get a bunch of first-round picks.
Trust the system.
Yeah, just trust the process. And I think what happened was Sashi Brown was actually really smart. And he hired Hue Jackson just knowing that he was actually a prolific loser and just really, really good at losing games. And they didn't realize that now once you get the talent, you got to get rid of Hue Jackson. Because I looked up the Browns. I saw that the Browns are the highest in the turnover differential in the NFL at +10, which is usually you can look at the turnover margin and the teams that are up in the turnover differential are good teams. Only 6 teams in the NFL right now have a +4 or better in the turnover differential. And those teams all combined for a 750 winning percentage. And the Browns with a +10 are 2-5-1. I don't know if there's a better coach at losing than Hue Jackson is. It's impressive.
I think I said something similar in week 3. That was, that stat's they've been head and shoulders above everybody in turnovers all year. It's ridiculous.
So, Tony, were you trying to say something blasphemous and say that they need to go out and get Lincoln Riley? Because he's going to be the next Cowboys head coach. I don't want you to don't put that negative stuff in the air.
Well, I will say this.
He did coach Baker Mayfield last year, right?
Yeah.
That was the first question Lincoln Riley was asked on his Monday morning press conference was, are you interested in the Cleveland job? I watched that
press conference, Kevin. You're absolutely right. You probably have better quotes than I do about that press conference because, you can watch all that stuff. I got to go manage 8 people. So, I
got a job, young buck.
That's kind of what that was.
Kevin's got a job now. Kevin's got a real job. Kevin's got a job though. He has a little bit of free time.
I just don't have a life outside of it.
That's right. But Lincoln Riley, he faced it head on. And the fact that he did that, I think, tells you that he's thinking about it.
I do too. I thought the way he answered the question made me think.
And then Scott Van Pelt said it last night. He said this guy could go and be in the NFL for 5 years, and he will have a college coaching job waiting on him. Now,
as soon as if he doesn't work out, he has a job waiting on him in college.
That's just like Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier. There is a job waiting on him. And so it's interesting to see what he does. And I don't know if he has any ties to Oklahoma or not.
Well, so that's the interesting thing. And as much as I would love, I don't know. I've not actually heard anything about the Cowboys and getting Lincoln Riley. think Jerry Jones would be willing to maybe, if he ever got rid of Garrett, he'd be willing to throw an obscene amount of money at a young coach. But the Browns job is actually a very interesting job. I mean, I think a lot of people like Baker Mayfield, think he's a good young quarterback, and there's a ton of talent all over the roster. Mm-hmm. I mean, not often do you hear the Browns job might be an interesting job, but I really think if you're Lincoln Riley at 35 or whatever, I think he might be the same age as Aaron Rodgers, which is insane, but that he could go coach the Browns. And like you're saying, if it doesn't work out and Baker Mayfield and him don't work it out in Cleveland, he can call up just about any organization. As soon as a job opens up in college, they'll call him first thing and he'll be right back in a good position.
Yeah, but
the Browns have also proven that they'll only give you 2 years. So, he doesn't have to wait long to see if it's going to work out. So they've only had 2 coaches ever coach for 4 years since they've reopened in Cleveland.
So, and I know you prefaced some of this earlier, LJ. I don't think you're trying to say maybe they should have held on to Hue Jackson, but it does seem like they're too quick to get rid of their guy at the top, right?
Well, I was, yeah. So you sent out that stat, you retweeted Adam Schefter about how they fired their coaches after the second week of Steelers.
Right.
And so then I went to go look to see what's going on there. And I tried to count how many coaches, that they've actually given what I would consider a chance. And, I was thinking maybe 4 years, and there's only been 2. And so I thought, okay, so what is a real good chance? And so I did a lot of research of how many seasons in did a coach start having consistent success if they're considered a good coach. So I was looking at the top 16 coaches in the NFL this year based on a preseason sort of article. Bill Belichick took 4 years before he had any sustainable success. Sean Payton took 4 years. He had a great season his first year, but then it took 4 years before anything sustainable. Pete Carroll took 3 years with the Seahawks, but he also coached 2 teams before that for less than 4 years. Mike Tomlin immediately was looking great, but they won the Super Bowl 2 years before that. John Harbaugh was immediate, and that one's actually mind blowing because he's been just good since he got hired, and there's been no transition for him.
Yeah, that's true.
But everybody else on this list is either not a very good coach or it took him about 4 years. And I looked at some of the all-timers just to get some reasonable numbers of who the greatest coaches of all time. I mean, Vince Lombardi took 3 years before he looked like a good coach. Don Shula had 2 off seasons before he looked like a good coach. Bill Walsh had 3 or 4 off seasons before he looked like a good coach. So, it's just you got to give your coaches more than 2 years before you know if they're any good or not. I mean, it's ridiculous how often coaches get turned over in the NFL.
I agree with that 100%. And that's why it was mind-blowing to me to see, while we don't know if Todd Bowles at the Jets is a good coach, if you don't give a guy 3+ years to at least see what he's building, then I don't think you ever know. You're just going to keep going through the same cycle.
Everybody's calling in Denver for Vance Joseph to be gone. And it's you gotta wait. Give it a second. You gotta see, because otherwise the other thing that happens is a coach is afraid to go to a place that's willing to fire you after 2 years because you're not going to be able to get your team in there. You got to have instant success or die. And so, it's bad for the team now and it's bad for the team 10 years from now.
Well,
to fire somebody that quickly.
One thing you can say about old Jerry Jones, he's given plenty of time to Jason Garrett.
Yeah. He made my list. I was trying to get how long until Jason Garrett had sustained success. Well, his first year of decent success was in year 4, but then he's only had other success in week 6. How is he still a head coach? That's what I wrote down. So
I don't have a good answer for you.
There's not a good answer to that.
There's not a good answer.
I wanted to, we're getting into almost the hour mark. So if y'all want to get on to kind of rapid fire on our game we always play, and who this week, I kind of want to start out with you, Pops. Who are you? Who you buying this week?
Well, I alluded to it earlier. It's the Houston Texans. I
thought there might be some we might be in agreement on a few. So go ahead.
I mean, I really like the trade for Demaryius Thomas. I hate Will Fuller went down, but I think Demaryius Thomas is a better receiver than Will Fuller. I like that defense. I think Deshaun Watson is starting to play up to his resume or whatever, his first year. I'm buying the Houston Texans. That's who I'm buying.
I'll go ahead and say mine too, because that's who I don't want to buy the Houston Texans because I just think Bill O'Brien is a train wreck waiting to happen. I don't think he's a good head coach, but I like Deshaun Watson. He seems like he's getting better and better. And we got to remember that he tore his ACL in week 8 last year. So he probably doesn't get healthy till about this is about the time where he really starts getting to 100% game speed. And I don't know if I think Demaryius Thomas is better than Will Fuller, but he's not much worse. And I think that offense only goes up. Lamar Miller's starting to get better. Deontay Foreman's coming back from that Achilles soon, so that's another good running back. And then I agree with you on the defensive side of the ball. They just got some hellacious pass rushers, which we know wins games towards the end of the year. And then you make a few turnovers. I like but that division too. That they're competing with Blake Bortles, who is just awful. And somehow they didn't go make a trade, and now they're stuck at Blake Bortles. You know, I heard that they maybe thought about reaching out to Eli Manning, and Eli Manning has a no trade clause. Somehow, I don't know who in New York let that happen, but Eli Manning has a no trade clause and would not accept to get traded anywhere.
It's the GM in Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin. That's who gave him
Archie Manning has something over the entire NFL. And now, did y'all see also that the backup quarterback for the Giants, who was going to get snaps on their bye week with the first team this week to maybe replace him, he gets pulled over for some weird traffic incident where he evaded police and hit a police, and now he might get cut. So Eli Manning's got that job for even longer. I don't know what Archie Manning is doing, but the NFL is just he's just got the whole NFL in a stranglehold.
Dude, what is it with these backup quarterbacks, man? Yep. Chad Kelly loses his freaking mind.
The year of the backup, last year's hangover.
Goes out to
right? Last year was the year of the backup. This year's the hangover.
I don't know.
Case Keenum called up Eli Manning, and they were just talking because I think Case Keenum backed him up for a little bit, but they called each other like, how can we both get rid of these backups to make sure we keep our job? And then here we go. A week later, mission accomplished. It only takes a Manning 1 week.
Little bit of Molly goes a long way.
So El, me and Dad are both buying the Texans. Who are you buying this week?
All right. Well, I was going to buy the Texans for the same reasons you listed, but I'm going to play the game. We've got that spreadsheet that the listeners don't know about, where I keep up with the value of the players and stuff like that.
That's the way you do
And I noticed
podcast right there. Give them something the listeners can't see. Good job.
We can share it on the website. That's fine. But the New York Giants, based on our statistics, are ranked 30th. There's nowhere down for them to go.
You bought the Jaguars last week, and you're buying the Giants this week?
I'm buying low risk, high reward buys. That's what I'm going for, because I am way down at the bottom of our score sheet right now. So I'm going with low risk, where, how much lower can the Giants actually go? Well,
they're on pace for the first pick in the draft.
I'm not losing much there.
They're on pace to get the first pick.
I'm just saying they're a better team than Buffalo. They're a better team than Arizona. They're a better team than Cleveland. Only barely. But, not with Hue Jackson gone. Actually, they might be worse than Cleveland. But that's a couple slots they'll move up. So, that's positive numbers. I don't have many of those on my picks. So, I'm playing the game.
Speaking of Buffalo, did you guys see that we will get a chance at history this weekend?
Peterman.
Nathan Peterman is starting this week on Sunday.
Again.
Yeah, I saw that.
The real Slim Shady will be back out there. He's
like the anti-Fitzmagic. He's like
the
Black
real
Fitzmagic.
Slim Shady. Oh my gosh.
If he can somehow, by any chance, if he can come out there and put up another 0 quarterback rating game, he will solidify his name as the worst NFL quarterback in history. So we got something to watch. Red Zone Channel better be tuning in.
Awesome.
I got a question. If Nathan Peterman and Ryan Fitzpatrick are both backing up the same quarterback, who gets more starts that season? Because somehow they both have some magic that lets them both get games.
Yeah, I don't know what Fitzpatrick is the best at losing and winning jobs all in the course of 1 year. I don't know how he does it. He came in against the Bengals and looked fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm still happy with my week 2 pick of the best quarterback to have for a game. That's the winner, no question.
So here's the deal on Fitzpatrick. Okay, I figured it out. He's only good for 2 games in a row. He's got to have a game off. In his whole career, he's great for 2 games, and the 3rd game he sucks. By the 4th game, he's out. It's the same thing every time. What the Buccaneers ought to do is let Fitzmagic start for 2 games and then sit him. Let Winston start. Fitzmagic start for 2 games.
Guaranteed 10 wins.
Then sit
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed 10 wins right there. You're 10-6. You may be in the playoffs in the NFC.
And then if Winston can get one here or there, yeah.
That's the deal. He's got to have rest for that shoulder. He ain't taking no steroids. He ain't taking the powder.
Dirk Cutter needs to be fired. Hire Uncle Tony. He can get you there.
I can do it, man. I can do it.
Who are you buying this week, Tony? Who you got?
All right, I'm going out on a limb on on all my picks tonight. So, and I wish I could take Houston, but a few weeks ago, I said Houston was the worst damn football team I'd ever seen. And they've won every game since. So, see, they're just doing it. So, City of Houston, if you're listening.
Don't listen to that. Anybody who I just told to hire Uncle Tony, don't listen to that part.
The City of Houston, if you're listening, you can send the thank you notes, and I will give you my Twitter, and we can get the PayPal going. You just send the money to me because I'm the one. I'm the one that said
that super active
so
Twitter
bad,
account of yours.
And they've won 5 in a row. So anyway, but I still don't think they make the playoffs. But anyway, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. And
okay, yeah.
So
yeah. Speaking of teams I wrote off and looking better.
Yeah, they turned it. Their defense has turned around. They've played very decent the last 3 games, and they beat somebody that I don't know who on this podcast picked for buy-in last week. The Detroit Lions at home, home favorite, and beat them. And so
because my man Michael Dixon, the best punter in NFL history. Did you see that play he made?
Yeah,
that was
it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy. So I'm going with the Seahawks.
Ty Montgomery.
And I'll tell you what, there are some really good games this weekend. If y'all are interested, and we can talk about betting later, but the Seahawks and the Chargers are playing this weekend, and that's going to make or break. I think that's what tells us if the Chargers are a playoff team or if the Seahawks are a playoff team, and that is in Seattle. I've got Seahawks all over that, and it's a pick 'em. That I really like. If Seahawks win that game, I think they're moving.
Is my man Bosa back?
I mean, they're both a playoff team.
What? No, he is not back.
Joey Bosa?
Joey Skint Knee Bosa is not back. They have said it's going to be a few more weeks. So, and you know what?
That is wild. I mean, I still don't know if I think the Seahawks have a good roster or not, but I can't really argue with the results. I mean,
it's really come about.
Russell Wilson's a really good quarterback.
Things have broken for them that are really good for them to get in the playoffs. The 49ers lost Garoppolo. The Cardinals are abysmal. And so you've got a great division you're working in there. Yeah, you're going to lose the Rams, but the Packers are down now. You can see that the Falcons aren't coming back a little bit, but they're down. The Buccaneers are beatable. There's a lot of teams in that division now. Minnesota's not as strong as we may have thought they would have been. A lot of teams there that are beatable and that you can get above them in that wild card race. So I'm going with the Seahawks.
I thought about them. I'm not one. I don't think I can buy them since I've already said they're not making the playoffs. But 2, I can't get into them yet. But I am with you, Tony. They're a game away from me thinking, I guess maybe they are pretty good. So we'll see. Who do you got, Dad? Do you have one this week for the team that is who you thought they were, or the player that is who you thought they were?
Yes, I do. And the player that is who I thought they were is Alvin Kamara. And I just was not ready for him last year to be as good as he is. But Ingram's back in there. Ingram's getting some carries. But Kamara is the star of that team. And the offense runs through Kamara, both passing and running. He's kind of a slight build, but he doesn't mind putting his head down and running it into the line, getting the tough yards. He's got glue for hands. He also is on my fantasy team. He's just fun to watch. He is a great ball player. He is talented in all facets of the game. And, I'm really impressed with Alvin Kamara, and he is who I hoped he was when I drafted him first in fantasy football.
Well, and I think LJ's brought this up a couple of times in a game in the NFL where it's all about getting your athletes out in the open field and making guys miss. I think LJ was saying at one point, is there a guy that's harder to tackle in open field than Alvin Kamara? The guy just is amazing and who's better than Drew Brees and Sean Payton at getting the ball, whether it's these little shovel passes or handoffs or putting them in the slot. They just do so well. And I'm with you. I love watching him play.
I love watching him play. Yeah.
So for my, I've actually mentioned this guy before for who we thought they were, and I just wanted to bring up something to LJ and Tony because I think this might fire up LJ a little bit. But sticking in that same game,
oh boy,
I hate to say it, Kirk Cousins is who I thought he was. And let me back up. I went and did a little research for you because I knew if I was going to come at this to LJ and Tony that I better have some backup.
Yeah.
And I think Kirk Cousins is a really good quarterback. I think he's solid. But I think he's the guy that he's going to win the games that he's supposed to win, as in the games against teams lower than 500. He'll win a lot of those, but he won't win the games against the Vikings or against the Rams or against any of the top tier teams.
Well,
and I went and looked up his career.
Plays for the Vikings, but
well,
that's
yeah,
a good chance of that.
So I went and looked up his career when he plays teams above 500. Since he's in games that he started when he got in the NFL, he has 8-15-1, which is a 333 winning percentage. When he plays teams below 500, he's 19-9. So he's really good. He's going to win all those games. He's not going to go at New York Jets and lose a game, or he's not going to go lose you a game at the Lions or something. But then when he goes and plays a good team on the road or a good team at home, like the Saints or something, I don't think he wins the big games. I just don't think he is. And I know, LJ, you like him. But
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he lost a big game against a team that only one other team's beaten. So, it's not like...
Well, Fitzpatrick beat him.
That's fair. That's fair. That's one of those guaranteed wins we talked about.
Yeah, that was the first of his 2 games that he was successful at. So,
I am intrigued by your Fitzpatrick theory. I do think there's something behind that.
So that means we get another game and a quarter of Fitzpatrick being good next week. Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, game and 3 quarters.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, game and 3 quarters.
I don't even know who he's got, but I'm taking the
Bucks.
over in the point spread, and yeah, I'm taking Bucks.
Yeah, they've got a good line this week. Yeah,
MyBookie, go put in the promo code JPP and put it down on the Seahawks and on the over for Fitzpatrick's offense, because they're just going to score
take the
points.
over on that one, because they're playing the Panthers. I really like Panthers at home are a pretty good bet right now. Only getting 4. So.
Who you thought they were this week, Tone?
We led right into it there, and I'm going to say Cam Newton.
Yeah,
that was an
impressive win.
That was a big game.
It's just
being
a good football player.
Home underdog and against the number 1 defense in the league, and to come out and have a dominant performance like that. I don't know that he had a turnover. I can't remember, but that was a really solid game by a solid professional quarterback. And so he's right now at hit the top of his game. I've bought the Panthers already. And I really think they're a solid shot at going to the Super Bowl if they can continue this success. They've got a great schedule down the stretch, and we'll see what happens. But Cam Newton's who I thought he was.
Yeah, I mean that Ravens team, I think, is probably the best defense in the NFL. I don't think that team in general is like a great team, but that is definitely a solid team. And Cam Newton and the Panthers look really good. And I feel like ever since that Super Bowl where the Panthers went 15-1 and had a great regular season, and then they just ran into a great defense in Denver, there's like this shtick on Cam Newton and Panthers, like we write them off like they're not that great. Cam Newton is a really, really good NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And often does a lot of with not much around him besides Greg Olsen.
Yeah. He's my quarterback in 2 of my fantasy leagues.
McCaffrey's pretty good.
Right.
Well, Christian McCaffrey's great.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Is the Cam Newton and Panthers love? Is that coming a little bit from old Norv Turner at OC? You think he has something to do with that?
He may have calmed him down a little bit. That's a good point. Yeah.
Good little relationship.
It does seem like Cam Newton's getting a little more accurate too. His problem was accuracy, and it seems like he's calmed down and he's a little more accurate with the football. I agree that.
And by the way, he's like 6'6", 250, and runs a 4.4 at the quarterback position. That's still
and there's that.
Got all the tools, no doubt.
So, Dad, who you start? We didn't hear you last week, so
who
I
does
want to hear
LJ
from you.
think they are?
LJ.
Okay.
Who do you think?
All right, so my first, I got two for you. My first is quite easy. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick, exactly what we talked about earlier. And then number 2 is Kevin Luthringer, because I know that we have a bad podcast host because we're in minute 15 of our quick fire game we're playing here.
Whoa! You wrong.
Whoa.
That hurts. There's some shots being fired over
play
here.
the talent, man. You got to play the talent.
I was thinking about maybe not saying that, but then you also forgot about me on who do we think they are? So you solidified that. I gave you 2 chances.
As far as I can tell, he's an ombudsman.
Yeah, is that who I need to talk about? Because I feel like there must be some sort of like corruption in our podcast. I think you might just have your job because you're the producer's son. So, I think I need to talk to the ombudsman to figure out how we can get this sorted out.
Well, I just want to be on record. I'm just glad to be here, by the way. So
I want to make sure that we hit you on this next topic. And LJ, who are you going with for the playoffs? Who are we writing off?
All right, you're good. Yeah, because this is gonna make me sad. The Broncos will not make the playoffs this year. They just will not.
I had no idea this was coming, but
that was like a good dagger. That was a good host moment right there.
Dang! Did you know that, Kevin?
No.
Wow.
They will not make the playoffs this year. It's just not gonna happen.
That's just karma. Wow. That's just karma biting him right in the tuchus.
In the tuchus. In the tuchus. Oh,
yeah, the Broncos. Yeah, they're
I mean, not much to say.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything.
I was looking at who I've picked for the playoffs, and it's getting about the time. I still don't know if I wanted. I could have gone more bold with my pick, and I have a bolder pick I could go with, but I think I'm going to write off the team that LJ. It's 2 weeks in a row now. I think that I've wrote off the team that LJ's buying. I'm gonna say the Giants are awful. I don't know if they win another 2 games. So
they're not making the playoffs either. I agree with that.
It'll start getting tougher here. After I think this week, it'll start getting tougher that we'll have to start picking these teams that are not actually out of it. Because the last 2 weeks, at least for me personally, I've picked teams that are completely out of it, like Buffalo and Giants and the Raiders. So it's not like these have been. I'm still good
because I've got 2 playoff teams in my not the playoffs list. So yeah.
Dad, who you going with? Who's not making the playoffs for you?
Well, I owe y'all a couple, and then because I've missed the last 2, so I'm going back a couple of weeks. But New York Giants is one of mine.
Okay.
The Cleveland Browns is another because they are in freaking disarray right now.
Yeah, but their only way is up now, right? They got rid of Huey in the news.
Well, but they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, true.
I'm just saying they're not.
Freddie
making
Kitchens
the
might
playoffs.
take them there,
and Freddie Kitchens might be the guy. And then so this week, my team that is not making the playoffs is the New York Football Jets. I'm going to put the Jets down.
So all of New York,
the whole city of New York is on.
The whole city of New York is not.
Nor will the Knicks or the Yankees.
No.
Speaking of the Jets, did you know today is, I don't know how many years it's been, but today's the anniversary of Mr. Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. Today is the actual anniversary of it.
Nice.
So Tony, who are you going with for your playoffs? Who's not making the playoffs?
I'm going with the Green Bay Packers.
That's a spicy pick.
I stayed away from that NFC North.
Yeah,
I did too.
I think that we talked about it earlier. I think the Vikings are going to outlast the rest of that division. I don't see Detroit. That was a terrible loss for them at home.
The Bears are leading that division.
Yeah, but I think the Vikings are going to take care of business here after a while. We'll see what happens down the stretch. They're a better team than the Bears are right now. Doesn't mean next year the Bears won't be a better team, but the Packers, the moves they made today just tell me you don't get rid of the second best safety in the league expecting to make the playoffs. I just don't see how you do that.
Yeah,
and,
I don't think you're wrong. That is spicy.
Yeah.
Though.
So
they also got a big game coming up on Sunday night. They're playing. Yeah. That's why this game was so. This game was such a hard game to lose against the Rams because that was a very winnable game. And then now they got to go play the Patriots on Sunday night. That's
at New England, and then I think there's a couple. They've got a couple of really tough games coming down the stretch. It's not good for them. So I'm going with the Packers.
I almost thought about going there with you, Tony, just because it looks like the playoff or the Packers themselves are selling at the trade deadline, but. It's scary. It's hard to say Aaron Rodgers is not making the playoffs if he's healthy.
Yeah,
I mean, he's just he's good.
Yeah, I just don't.
Did y'all see the commercial? Speaking of that Patriots-Packers game, the commercial that Michael Jordan did, and it was a Sunday Night Football commercial, and it was basically saying it was like it's always a debate: the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the best versus the best. Sometimes they even wear the same number. They look a lot alike, and it was making all these innuendos to him and LeBron. He's like, so you know what I think they should do? They should just they should just play each other. Let's dress them up and let's play. And then the commercial was 12 versus 12, Rodgers versus Brady. But it was this whole big thing, like him acting like him and LeBron playing one-on-one, which I would still, it wouldn't be fair this day and age at him at like 50, whatever he is now. I'd still pay a lot of money to watch that one-on-one game.
No kidding.
Just to see Michael hit a mid-range jumper over LeBron would be awesome.
I can guarantee you though, Michael would bet the under and he'd win $1 million on it though.
So did that wrap up? I know I missed someone on the last one, LJ. Did we get it? Did we touch them all here?
Well, I think we did. Yeah, I think we did.
I think so.
Is there any lasting words, lasting shots y'all want to say before we got? Last time, right before we got out, we talked about Swag Kelly, which is a great way to end it.
Kelly.
Well, I just realized during the recording of this podcast that Curly Lambeau looks exactly like Patrick Mahomes. So there's a decent chance that Patrick Mahomes is Curly Lambeau having learned to throw after the last 70, 80 years of his death or something. I don't know. Just a fun fact. He looks just like him. He looks like Kid
and Play, so he looks like. But,
I think it's worth mentioning that Brandon Marshall got released. You know,
he did. I didn't even see that.
He got released by the Seahawks, and I always like Brandon Marshall. I don't know that he's done, but he probably
he's done.
Yeah, probably
he's done. And he's one of those guys.
I like the dude.
You like him, but you know what? For a while, you thought, man, this guy is the best there ever will be, and then he fades off. He's not a Hall of Famer, but for about 3 or 4 years there, he was really good. Reset the game.
Yeah, he was really
good. This is just right off this is firing from the hip because I didn't even know he was released until Dad just shared that. But you know where I think he goes? There was a team that was shopping for a receiver, and they were going for Demaryius Thomas, and they didn't end up getting him. Let's reunite Josh McDaniels and Brandon Marshall at New England. I think it's going to happen. You already saw
they were shopping for a receiver. You're right. They were. Why? I don't know.
There's a connection. He already knows McDaniels' offense.
That's true.
Don't like it.
That's true.
I'll tell you why.
When the NFL asks me, I'm going to say I don't approve.
I would tell you if Gronkowski was hurt,
I'll tell you why they were shopping for a receiver. Apparently, did y'all hear that Josh Gordon he didn't get to start the game or wasn't going to start because he was tardy to a meeting?
He was tardy to a meeting.
Yeah, but then I saw him I looked up in the second play.
He did start. I think he started, but this was coming around.
I wanted to throw out this week that the Patriots are not who I thought I was. Like the whole benefit of Josh Gordon going over there was that he was going to have true discipline and it was going to be like the team. It's going to be Patriots way. And then he shows up late, which is stereotypical, means you don't get to play in the Super Bowl now. And they let him play. They don't care. Whatever. Because it's Josh Gordon. Well, their best
corner didn't even get to play in the Super Bowl, but Josh Gordon doesn't even miss a snap against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, so that's another thing.
Yeah. The Patriots are not who I thought they were.
Maybe the Patriots were punishing him to say, you're going to have to play against the fucking Buffalo Bills, man. You're going to have to go out there and play every single snap. Now, we'll say this, Hue Jackson did the same thing to Antonio Callaway in the preseason. You're going to play every single snap of this whole game. Now, Hue Jackson's fired. I don't think Bill Belichick's going to get fired. But, that may have been it. And I will say this, LJ's right, though. Man, that report came out. Josh Gordon's been late. Josh Gordon's been this. He's going to sit. He's not going to play the first few series. He's after the first play. And so, there's a reporter about to get fired because Bill Belichick says, I'm going to teach these people for coming in my locker room. Or B, it was a false story.
Or Bill Belichick's getting soft.
He might be getting soft.
Come on, man.
Sometimes
when you soft.
You become a granddad, you get a little softer with age,
No, I don't. No, you don't wear those kind of sweatshirts and call yourself soft. No. Well, wait a minute. I should back up on that. I do wear those kind of sweatshirts and I am soft. So, what can I say?
Well, one thing I can tell you
doughy
about the Patriots. The Patriots are on to the Packers. They're on to week 9. They're on to the Packers.
Take him, boys. Less than a touchdown at home. Boy, that's a good one. Not as good as taking those Titans plus 7.5 against those stupid Cowboys. Well, there's a good one for you.
Tony's
MyBookie.ag.
Uncle Tony's throwing out money. Go get on MyBookie. Put in the JPP. He's giving away money.
Well, I may do that. The Titans are plus 7.5 against the Cowboys.
Plus 7 at Dallas. You got to take that Sunday night. Grab you some Bills.
MyBookie, your bookie, our bookie.
MyBookie.ag. Grab you some Seahawks, Bills, and Titans. Make you some money.
There you go. Make that. You put a parlay down, throw $100 down, win $600. There you go.
Booyah.
It's money in the bank.
Booyah. Now, I'm not suggesting you put 100 down. That's up to you.
I think that'll do it for this week.
Peace.
Peace out.
Later, boys. Hey, do you have any of that 70s porn music?
We are recording. We are awesome. Jesus.
Well, that'll go well with the podcast.
Do we need to do the clap check?
Hannah would love that.
Okay, I always like to check for the clap. I mean,
I've got my half-second delay for lift ready to go.
Oh, come on, do it.
So on all clap. I'm going to count down from 3, and when I hit 0, we all clap. All right. 3, 2, 1, 0.
You did, Kevin.
No,
Yes.
That's the same
Thank
time.
you. You said no.
Yes.
2, 1, 0. Clap.
0.
That's what you did.